Hello, and welcome back to the Better Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, Paulette Rigo, CEO and founder of Better Divorce Academy, author of #1 best-selling book, workbook, audiobook, and course, The Better Divorce Blueprint. I'm a credentialed private mediator specializing in ADR, which stands for Alternative Dispute Resolution, and a high conflict certified divorce coach. And this podcast was started about a decade ago as a passion project to help people researching, supporting, feeling overwhelmed by the whole divorce journey and need help. So you found the right spot. Grab your notebook, find a comfortable seat, get a drink or something to snack on, and sit down because we're in for a great conversation with my guest, Donna Jean Kendrick. Well, she is also a CFP, which is another acronym for Certified Financial Planner, but she's an author, so immediately I love her to pieces. As an author, I know the pains of being an author. I've written 4 books myself, so we already have something, a kindred spirit there. So welcome to the show, Donna Jean. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Paulette. I appreciate it and look forward to the extended conversation.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about your, I don't want to say resume, but what makes you that expert that people want to listen to regarding giving them advice about money?
Yeah, so it's really a little bit about my journey and a little bit about my mission. So, yeah, little girl from Philadelphia, right? Educated at Penn State. I was a nerd, a very social nerd, but I have a degree in statistics and wound up working for financial forecasting in the pharmaceutical industry. And like so many people, so many women, I gave up my career to follow my husband. And he worked for Homeland Security at the time, and we lived abroad for many years. Came back home stateside, finally got back to the Philadelphia area, had raised my kids far away from family and friends and was thrilled. And 3 months later, my husband passed away suddenly. He had taken his life, and it was just shocking, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And so I took about 2 years, and I say 2 years licking my wounds, right? But a lot of it was 2 years just to gather myself, knowing that I just lost a breadwinner. I had to recreate my career. I had a 7-year gap in employment in my career. My industry actually didn't exist very much after 2008, 2009. And what was I going to do next? But what I was going to do next wasn't just going to be a job. It wasn't just going to be a career where you just felt better because of raises or your team or accomplishments. Like, I need to do something in mission. I needed to turn that lemons into lemonade, right? And so how was I going to help somebody that was in my position moving forward? Because the one blessing I have is a strong extended family on my late husband's side. And I wake up pretty optimistic every day. Even on those days that you think would be crappy, I'm so appreciative of each day. And that's a blessing. I don't know many people when things are down and out that can wake up and say, yeah, but I have today, so what am I going to do good with it? And I'm lucky. And so I actually took an inventory of my own history and my own experience and said, what was the most impactful part or the team that helped me after I lost my first husband? And that was the help of my financial advisor. He was able to help me answer the question of, am I going to be okay financially? Can I keep my house? Can I educate my kids? And so I actually sat down with him over coffee in Starbucks and said, hey, I know what I want to do in this next 2-year period, because he did. He gave me 2 years. Get it together, and you got to start making an income. Like, this is a reality check. He's gone. You had enough savings to work part-time and feed the kids oodles of noodles, but you got to do something else. And I was like, yeah, I want to do what you did for me for other people. And I don't think that was what he was expecting in that conversation. But he showed me the roadmap of what education I had to go back and do, allowed me to mentor under him. And then in 2020, I opened up a practice under my own maiden name and specialized in financial planning for families in transition. I focused on widows because that's what I knew. But all of a sudden you start getting recommended to other women and men who are transitioning in the same way, where their future feels very different than they're today, that loss of dreams and plans. And those were my divorcees. But there was something really different. Like, my widows and my widowers, we knew where their financial structure was. We knew, like, there was a line in the sand, and this was it. The divorcees, wow, everything kept changing. Like who made what money when, the alimony going up and down, like child support according to the state, chatting on monitored lines. Like it was crazy. And I felt like if I can lean in and give my widow support, then I definitely need to lean in and give my divorcees support because I think their battle's a little bit more uphill. And that's where I started leaning into my divorcees too. Fast forward, writing the divorce money map, I just really wanted them to have a toolkit, really a toolkit to move forward. So that's a little bit of my story and the why to where I am today.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that heartfelt, authentic, transparent journey with everyone. You sharing that with us and myself. It's I get goosebumps just listening to you talk about that. I haven't lost a spouse to death. I have had, family members and quite a few relatives with also suicide. So, kind of reflecting on that. And this is a difficult topic. If you know anyone, please, reach out for help. That's not the conversation we're having today, but it does affect everyone. But thank you for sharing that. It's not always easy to share a part of ourselves that is raw and real. And no matter how much time passes, I do know that those emotions still sit. And thank you for sharing in this public forum, no doubt. So it's not like it's just you and I sharing, I'm just having water at the moment, but it's a lot. So thank you. I do not take that responsibility lightly. And I've had, deep conversations over the years with many people on this show. And I've been a guest also on hundreds of podcasts. And, this is part of our journey, right, Donna, is to share why we do what we do. It's one of the reasons I do my work too. So thank you for that. And there's a lot of, you're welcome. You're very welcome. The empath in me always goes, But there's a lot of similarities, with the widowed dome and divorcee dome. I don't know if those are real words, but I guess they are now. But, when we go through the stages of grieving in death and we go through the stage of grieving in divorce, they are similar. And of course, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969 coined the term the 5 stages of grieving. And it isn't the 5 stages of death or the 5 stages of divorce. It's just grieving. But people do grieve in different ways. But the difference, is if there's a passing, you don't see that person again. Which is hard, but it's like you said, there's where the money is.
There was showing up at prom or graduation pictures, right? No.
Yeah. You don't have to go to court and argue about who's picking them up at the dentist at 3 or whatever. I know that's very petty, but giving you an example, it's just all the responsibility falls on you, and thank goodness you had that financial planner mentor guide in your life that really did kind of lock arms with you, hold your hand, and step by step get you out of that muck, and inspire you to help others. So kudos to that person in your life. And I have a very similar mentor in my life, my family law attorney too, Martin Kane, who really did for 8.5 years, and that's not an exaggeration, hold my hand and lock arms with me and step by step get me through that journey. I could not have done it without him. I learned so much, good, bad, and ugly, about the judicial system. I had no idea. I was so green. I thought an affidavit was about some guy named David. I didn't know. I'm not kidding. That's really what I thought. And I was like, wait, who is this David guy? I don't know a David. He used to be a pianist at the studio, but I don't think he's coming to court for me. So, meaning I really didn't know what a domestic relations financial affidavit was. I didn't know what a marital balance sheet was. Discovery, interrogatory, sua sponte order, gatekeeper, guardian ad litem, confidentiality agreements. I won't keep going. I'll give you all trauma, but I didn't know what any of that stuff was. And I learned by going through it. But back to the grieving part, you're right. In divorce, and so much honor to those widows. My mom did lose my dad, and I remember it took her, I'm going to say about 2 years, maybe 3 or 4, to really get out of that funk, that fog that she was living in. And my mother-in-law too lost her husband, and of course she was elderly, so it was a little bit different. But I think my mom was 61 when my
Very
dad
young.
passed, which was pretty young, my age actually. So you never know, right? So, it happens to, whether you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, beyond, it isn't, or younger, right? It isn't an easy thing. But with divorce, that person's still there. And we also have different categories of assets, Donna, right? So we've got the premarital assets, and we've got the non-marital assets, and we have the marital assets, whereas in being a widow, it's all, well, depending on how it's written and in the will, and that could be another conversation, but beneficiaries and life insurance policies, and, again, there could be some probate and issues, and that might be another interesting conversation we have, my dear. But back to divorce, it's very complicated. It can be much more complicated. So thank you for parallel that. I don't normally see that parallel.
And we call a lot of it is, especially in the divorce, is quote unquote the quality of money, right? Like a house, great, right? Has a different growth rate, has a different liquidity. How quickly can it go to cash than a cash account, right? And does the cash account might have investments within it? How long have you owned those investments? What's the taxable consequence versus retirement money that can compound, and tax deferred versus tax free? And if for many, many of my clients, they were not the spouse with the financial savviness in the relationship. They might have been the spouse that took care of the monthly bills and setting up automatic bill payer, but they didn't have that macro look, right? And so not only are we gathering what was yours before the marriage, what was yours both during the marriage, what is jointly, what is individual, what is retirement, when did you, we're not only just looking at that, but we're also looking at what do you know about these assets, right? Where did they come from? What's your relationship with it? And a lot of it is getting down to the basics of how do you make money decisions? What's the emotions behind it? And I think one of the reasons I don't often share that my husband took his life, right? But I think in this conversation, it's relative, because I walked many years because of his suicide thinking I wasn't worth living for. So for the divorcees out there, they feel very similar. They feel very rejected, and they're trying to make these decisions for the future when they don't even feel worthy of being in one. Not every case, but in many, that's what exists. And I think we have to be so conscientious as professionals and empathetic to say, what are they emotionally ready to make decisions on, and is that fair? Some decisions just have to be made. So how do we break it down so lovely for them so it's digestible, understanding to their financial savviness, and they can really understand the repercussions? Because there's a point where I've seen probably 50% of my divorcees say, I'm just throwing in the towel. I don't care anymore. They're so drained, right? But you stayed in for 8.5 years, right? Here we go.
Yeah, buckle up. Yeah, it's not it's a marathon, not a 50-yard dash, right? So, well, you pick up so many points. I don't know where to begin, but yes, and yes. The overwhelm and the fear, and in some ways, the embarrassment or the guilt and the shame of feeling abandoned, rejected, alienated, discarded. Is very painful. It's now it goes both ways, because when I'm mediating, I'm working with both parties, and usually there is one party that has initiated the divorce. It happens that occasionally both parties say, I'm done. Hey, me too. I don't mean to laugh, but wouldn't that be lovely if, not that I'm pro-divorce, but if both parties really were at the same stage of grieving, of acceptance or acknowledgement and ownership of the part that they have played in the demise of the marriage, where they can say, this isn't working. What can we do to move on with the next chapter of our life with some grace and dignity and respect, for self-respect, but also mutual respect for one another as partners and as a family, to acknowledge the fact that maybe this marriage is dead. We've gone to couples counseling. We've done therapy. We've done religious counseling. We've talked to family members. I've seen it all. And none of it's worked. And we've been treading water, living as roommates, living in relationship ambivalence. I call it roommate syndrome, where, it's fine when you've got your college roommate and you're like friends with your college roommate, but you're not like BFFs with your college roommate. You go, hey, see you tomorrow. Bye. Have a nice night. And, like that's cool when it's your college roommate and you've got to like share a room but there's no intimacy. There's no communication other than, hey, leave me a note on the front door if you're going to be late. Like that's not a relationship with your spouse. So many people live in that for years. They really do. It's very sad. And that kind of breaks my heart, particularly if the children are seeing that and going, oh, is that the way mommy and daddy are supposed to relate? Because now you're setting an example for the children of what marriage is supposed to look like, of ships passing in the night and a husband that's married to a business, or a wife who's, constantly doing her thing and not really involved in the family dynamics, or is really just dedicated to the children and not, which is good, but not to the spouse. And I could give you scenario after scenario, but this podcast wouldn't be long enough for us to go through them all. But it's overwhelming, this stage where the parties are not in that situation. 80-90% of couples are not, both of them waking up in the morning and go, hey, I'm done. Oh, good. Me too. Let's find a mediator. It's usually one party that says, honey, we got to talk. I'm not happy. And that's usually how it goes. And the other's like, deer in the headlight. That's my deer. Shock and denial, right? This isn't happening. No, say it isn't so. Let's go to therapy. I'll fix it. I'll lose weight. I'll gain weight. I'll be nice. I won't swear at you. I won't spend as much money. Let's go on vacation. Whatever the laundry list of things that they're going to change so that the spouse will stay and change their mind. And you can't really get inside their head. But whether it's the husband that says, I'm done, or the wife says they're done, or in, homosexual marriages now, wife, husband, don't mean to use those terms synonymously, but they are on the DERFA. So somebody has to get with it and just write spouse A and spouse B. It still says wife and husband. I don't know. It is what it is. I usually try to use the word spouse, but on the document, it still says wife and husband. So A and B, if they aren't both on the same page, you're always going to have one party that feels devastated, that feels abandoned, right? And the other, even the person that wants the divorce, feels heavy because they typically don't want to hurt the person. I've only met maybe 2 people in my many years of doing this work that's like, yeah, I don't care how they feel. Most people really do have a feeling of heaviness, like, wow, I've been avoiding this for so long because I didn't want to devastate them, hurt their feelings, make them feel bad. But the only way out is through. So when you get to that point, it isn't an easy conversation, right? So I don't know. I've never really thought of the parallel of that with the death and the divorce, but it is very pivotal.
It is. I agree with
Yeah.
you. And I think a big part of it too is for even the widows and the widowers that I work with, when they can get through that fog, right, that you talked about, that your mom was in, right, and how long it takes. I believe because of the control, because you have control over your assets, you have control over your decisions. My favorite jokes, my kids were 8, 11, and 12 when my husband passed, was that every decision was mine. Like if they would complain that they didn't think I was being fair, I'd be like, oh, let's go see who thinks I'm not being fair. And I would yell in the top of my lungs in the foyer, who disagrees with me? Who's under 18 or over 18? No one. My way. Right? And so someone can make decisions for their next future because they're in control of those decisions. It's not the same for so many of our divorcees, right? Because you have alimony that could go away. You have a spouse who pays alimony and maybe they didn't pay that life insurance. So now there's no income. So it's really hard sometimes to get to that, okay, my next best step incorporating that ex or at least their financial support when it's a divorce, because you don't always feel as if you're in control. So a lot of it is just trying to understand for so many of our clients, let's make decisions according to this financial forecast A, that you are in control of all of it. And this is financial forecast B that has variables that can come and go. And now let's make decisions according to A. And if B is there as a financial asset, then bonus time. Now we're going to go do something fun. Now we're going to go accelerate our retirement, so on and so forth. But I think it's really hard that when you get to a divorce, you're like, finally, I'm done, like the settlement. Not always, right? So let's always remember what we have control of, what's a fixed, and then what's a variable. And I can put that in the math terms, but that's actually emotional too.
It is. One of the first things I do when I intake a new client, whether they're mediating or I'm coaching them, is I ask them 9 questions. And one of them is, are you aware of all of your marital assets and debt? Most people look at me like, no, or yes, or I'm not sure. It's a very confusing time for them. They don't understand what marital assets are. They typically are not aware of them. And those that think they are usually wrong. Just between you and I, right?
No,
Don't
we
do the rest
often
of that,
have
right?
our divorcees pull their annual credit report from annualcreditreport.com. And now if they are amiable, yeah, let's get those. And then we'll sit together and we're going to go through the accounts. Many of times there's accounts on there that one divorcee forgot about, didn't know was open jointly, didn't know that there was missing payments on it because they were not the spouse that took care of the daily finances. And next thing they know, they're like, why do I have a 628 credit score? Right? Like, oh, that's why. And that is one of, we call it like the forensic accounting of divorce. Like that's just step one, a simple step to pull that. And that's a great foundation. I'm glad you asked that question. That's a great foundation of, okay, let's at least look at what accounts we have open. Let's answer this question.
Yeah, and I mean, I've lived all this, and I got an email with my new credit score, and I was dumbfounded how high it was. It was over 800. I was like, okay, cool, super cool. And I was like, I wonder why. So, little Miss FBI agent, just joking on that, investigated, and I was dumbfounded to find that there were like 22 credit cards I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
No, they all had zero balances, so I wasn't alarmed. But I thought, wait, oh yeah, I guess I do have a Crate and Barrel credit card from
Oh, yeah.
1992
Well,
that
we opened up in college for a free
that I've
t-shirt,
never
right?
used and has a zero balance and might as well. But apparently Crate and Barrel or, other stores think that I still do have an account there. But the point is, like, most of us, divorce or not, don't know what the heck we have, which is a problem. We really should, if this is a lesson to you, figure it out. So, and then you don't want to just run up and cancel all 22 of those accounts because it's going to mess with your credit. So, there's a strategy there. I work with a lot of credit repair people too in divorce because sometimes, well, I can't say sometimes, usually your credit score will go down for both parties because of divorce. I'm going to say 50 points, maybe 100. So be careful. That's just an average. So don't be alarmed if I'm right or wrong. But it's a unique problem, right, Donna? That your credit score will likely go down because of divorce, right?
And be ready for that, right? And be
Yeah.
ready for the
And don't
change
take
in
it personal.
taxes,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
my second husband, Jim, he was divorced, and then his ex-wife had passed away. So we are now a blended family of a kind of ex-husband widower versus myself and 6 kids, 14 to 24, and it's mayhem, and I love it. But he even said like he was so excited after his divorce that he was going to get the tax return that was going to help him get an apartment for himself, first month and last month's rent. The divorce was signed on the afternoon of December 31st. So he therefore had to file his taxes as single, right? And didn't get that tax return that he was so expecting because he had gone 365 days thinking, yeah, I got it. And they got signed on December 31st, right? So these are those small things that if you don't know that, if you don't know that that's going to change your tax status, you might be depending on money that doesn't exist. So.
Well, I always say that divorce changes every aspect of your life. No cell in your body will be the same. No aspect of your life will be that same. And there's two sides: judicial, legal, financial, residential, lending, insurance, taxes, and co-parenting. But on the other side, there's also psychological, emotional, mental, physical, sexual, spiritual. So you put that in a big bowl of, whatever you want to call it,
The snow globe.
fruit salad, and it gets messy. So it might look more like oatmeal than a fruit salad. It gets sticky. So the more you can be aware of, like spokes of a wheel, every different unique aspect of the process, all the professionals that you need. Maybe you don't need them, but at least the ones you might need. Doing your homework, your credit score, filling out your marital balance sheet, understanding your debt, your assets, and working with a financial planner to help them. Some people ask me about a certified divorce financial planner, a sort of CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, another acronym. Sorry about that. And they can be very useful in some situations. Not everyone needs one. They can be a little costly, but in some situations, they're very, very helpful if you have significant assets. And what's a significant asset? To some, that's $500. To some, it's 500 million. So I'm not going to give you a quantitative number, but if you feel that there really is a need to do some serious diagnosis of different scenarios of child support, alimony, asset division, then a CDFA is usually helpful. But back to the reality of this, back to those 9 questions, that is the one that I usually get just NO written. Or the cocky one saying, absolutely, I know everything, and then come to find out they don't. So.
Yeah. And that's exactly the person you would say, hey, let's send a copy of the divorce money map to them, right? Because this is where they're going to make that worksheet, starting left to right, being like, all right, let me educate myself, highlight the parts that they want to sit down with you and be like, hey, help me out. I don't even understand what this asset is, or lean into your financial planner. And I love that you said too, like about how to interview your team almost. We have lists of questions and blank pages. Interview a financial planner, interview an accountant, interview a divorce attorney, interview a mediator. Because again, there's emotions in there. You might not remember every answer, so write them down. And then go back when it's quiet and choose. We've had some of our clients actually have their best friend go and do all of the interviews, and then they give their top 2 to the client and be like, I like these 2 best, to save some time, right? Because time is precious too.
Yes, which is a wonderful segue to the divorce money map. So this, for everyone, this map, this book is about taking control of your finances before, during, and after divorce. Donna has created it as a plan that supports your redefined family and future dreams, how to protect yourself from costly mistakes. I'm all for that during divorce. The first practical step to taking and regaining control of your money. So that's, the Amazon description of the book, right? Everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? Like, could they describe a book in as many words as possible instead of, I know, for SEO reasons, but for reality, for those listening, who is this book catered to? Who needs to get it?
Yeah, it's that person that wasn't financially savvy in the relationship, right? It's that person who didn't have all the passwords, didn't run the filing system in the house, doesn't know where all of the assets are. You just know that your husband or your wife had a guy, right? Like, oh, that guy did it. Oh, the one that lived, the one in Ivyland, that's the one, right? That's the person that needs this book, because it's going to really help you identify what questions you should be asking. Again, you don't know what you don't know, right? So this book actually takes you, this is what we need you to know, or at least need your divorce attorney or your mediator to know. So let's do the hard work back here instead of charging maybe $600 an hour to sit with your attorney to be like, let's see if we can find it through this box, right? But it's also there too to help you understand during this time of emotions. There's 365 sections, 1 page per day for a calendar. For who did I talk to when? What notes did I take? Did I get a snarky email from the other side today? Right? These are the things that sometimes you want to track, because in the speed or the slowness of life and the divorce, you want to make sure that you have all of your quote unquote eggs in one basket at times, that you are organized. Organization really helps us with clarity. Organization helps sometimes to speed things along, and organization helps you feel in control. And that's what this book is for, helping you just to get organized. Because what you gather now, when you are on the other end of the divorce, you're going to be doing it again. The pages really aren't that different between pre-divorce and post-divorce. The numbers are going to look different. The properties that you own are going to look different. The insurances you have will look different. But we want you to practice with the pre-divorce so you've got it nailed post-divorce, because this is when you have as much control as you can over you.
Perfect. I wish you had written this 20 years ago.
Sorry, took me a little while.
Don't we all? And also, I just want to remind people, it isn't just the assets that you need to be concerned about. Checking, savings, 401k, pension, real estate, vehicles, furniture, the things you own. But it's also the things you owe. So being careful about credit cards, IRS, student loans, car loans, mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. Both of them play a part in that asset division or debt division. So the people get so focused on the money, the assets versus, I'm like, so do you owe money to the government? Do you have student loans? How are the credit cards working? I have one case where I'm 99.9% done. There just one little glitch on the way back, I'm saying 7 or 8 years ago, tax filing. Oopsie. We hate to blow a beautiful mediation memorandum of agreement that have both been worked very, very hard on over one tiny little oops, miscommunication. So not that I want anyone to feel overwhelmed with the debt part of it, but it can sometimes be that sneaky little fly in the ointment, that, fly in the Chardonnay, as Alanis Morissette sings there, to ruin your day. So make sure you look at both. And I'm sure Donna looks at that in the Divorce Money Map, and it's a great name. I mean, I would have named, that's why I called it the Better Divorce Blueprint. I wanted people to have an architectural blueprint of what it looks like from the very early stages of why are you even feeling this way, or why is your spouse feeling this way? And there are 21 main reasons couples divorce. How many of them do you have? If you don't have any, then why are you here? And if you have all 21, well, let's get this done quickly. All the way to changing your name and dating again and starting a business and making sure that your financial future is secure and that you're aware of everything. Because if you weren't aware of your finances pre-divorce, you certainly now need to take ownership of them post-divorce, because this is you. You have to really take the bull by the horns, as they say, right? You got to. Nobody's going to chart that course unless it's you. And if you don't have people that you really trust, be careful. There's gossip out there too, right? People love
a whole nother podcast
to talk.
Love it.
So be very, very careful, discerning. Not just, I trust them. Do you really? And I can teach people about how to really learn to trust the right people. But if you don't discern properly what information you share with people, your entire life will become public. And if you're the type of person that doesn't care, okay, well, it's a free country, you do you. But most people are going to want to keep their private life private, and that would include your finances for most people. Money is a very sensitive topic, and money and divorce are very sensitive topics. And now you put them both in the same bowl and stir it up, well, it could be a disaster. So I want to warn everybody about who you share information with. Make sure you have the right professional that you really can trust. So let's talk a little bit about creating that plan for them. If you have somebody that calls you and does want to work with you, and they read the book and they go, I love this is so helpful, but I need really a one-on-one, what's the first thing that you do with them in a session? I'm assuming that you do some sort of consultations, obviously, as a certified financial planner, but we didn't necessarily want to just talk about investing money once you get the money, but that's a whole nother, let's get there soon. But what is that first initial step that you want them to engage in?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you even bring that up, because we had the conversation about financial planning. Where you are now, where do you want to be, and how do we get you there? And we do that through discovery sessions. And our discovery session through our financial planning practice, they're complimentary, right? Because it's a whole hour. For you to sit there and pick my brain, for you to tell me your story. Sometimes people want to be heard. And I love to talk, right? I do. But I have really learned that a wise man once said nothing. If I just sit and I listen well, you start to see how they make their money decisions already. You start to see what the sticky points are, right? You start to see where their priorities might lie from sometimes just hearing their stories. But that discovery session is also there so that we, at the end of it, hopefully have asked the right questions. And then we provide those prospects or those people or those clients with what we call a visual summary. So it is literally visually, because we all learn differently, right? So if you haven't used Divorce Money Map yet, then we will go through this conversation being like, what's in my name, what's in his name, what's in both our names, what's in the kid's name, what is that quality of money, what's tax deferred, what's tax free, what's here, and where does that look like on what goal? Is the goal to protect income should that spouse die? Is that goal to get you to retirement? Is that goal to keep your house and educate your kids? Is that keeping your house mean that there should be X amount of money available so you can maintain the house for a long bit of time? Taxes on your own, things like that. So in this discovery session, though it's just an hour, our goal is to ask the right questions and make sure you have that visual summary. 2 reasons. 1, so that you can use it as a reference point, share it with your mediator, share it with your attorney. But 2, to go ahead and put that with your estate documents, your will, your healthcare directive, your power of attorney. There's going to be a section of what life insurance do I have for my employer and separate. So if God forbid something happens to you before, during, or after this process, there's a roadmap for that executor of your will to go ahead and be able to say, okay, this is where everything is. Because like you said, gossip is gossip. Be very careful who you share information with. That sister-in-law who's your best friend might quote unquote change teams in the middle, right? So be careful. I've had so many experience with that with the widows and the divorcees, right?
Yeah.
And then if somebody wants to work with us later, that discovery session is also an opportunity for me to say, do I think I can help this person? Or is there a better financial advisor that I think could fit their needs? Not every person is a client for me, and I am not the perfect advisor for every client. I really save or end every discovery session by saying, if you are interested in working with our practice, if it's somebody we would welcome, but I need you to know is that I mommy my clients. I really do mommy them. I only take on 1 to 2 a month because I want to be that person that answers that phone call that might be at 8 o'clock when a car just got repossessed, right? Like I want to be that person that if you're just having the crying jags, you feel like I might be that safe person. Now there's a barrier between financial decisions and emotions, but I want you to know that there's privacy and you can hold my hand because you're having a hard time with this financial settlement and it feels bad, right? So that's why we take them on, but some people don't want me, quote unquote, in their business. They just want to give numbers and say, okay, investments, that's the other side. Investments, I'm a statistician by nature, right? Like that's how I was educated. So investments are money in the market, making it work for you according to your risk. How do we want the money to come out? When do we need it? What's that bucket strategy? That is fun. I can do that all day long. I won't invest for anyone who doesn't have a financial plan because being a CFP, a certified financial planner, I need to make sure that every decision I make is in my client's best interest. And if I don't know what's going on here, or that you're going to have alimony drop off, or that all the college costs are on you, then how am I investing your money well? I just don't believe in it. So all of my clients post-discovery session, if they're able to work with us and they want to, and we both invite one another in, then that's financial plan first. Then we'll talk about that assets and that management. And like you said, for many of these divorcees, that money might not even be available for a year or two, not longer, right? And so how are we going to work even to get compensated, right? With maybe a gentleman's agreement that, yep, we'll manage money in the future. Or, okay, let's do an hourly, or let's do a subscription basis. We'd have both subscription and one-time financial planning fees that you can pay cash for, and then we can also get paid through asset management. So that's a very distinctive way to do business that not every financial advisor does. And I like giving that choice to my clients because they might really be happy with Cousin Vinny who's investing their money. Okay, I'll keep an eye on it, right? But let's get the plan in place because that's really what's going to help direct you moving forward.
It is good that they have options. Not all people offer options, so I love the integrity of that. I also offer options with my clients in mediation and coaching. It isn't a one-size-fits-all problem, so it certainly shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all solution. And I also want to make note that in divorce, I see more than usual a higher or lower risk tolerance level. There's so much fear of losing any more than they've already lost because they've lost the marriage, they lost their spouse, they've lost time with their children, they may have lost half of their 401k, they may have lost health care coverage, tax deduction benefits, many other things that may have come into play, and their risk tolerance may have originally been, put everything in crypto. Sorry, bad joke.
No, we call that going to Atlantic City.
Yeah, like sure, who cares? I'm 12. I've got years to make it up. And there are others that won't risk a penny. I'm not willing to risk a penny. So that obviously that's a very extreme example of risk tolerance, but you got to also think about that because if you're not going through divorce and you've got more stability in your life, more certainty in your life, your risk tolerance is probably higher, right? But if it's lower because you might have losing child support or alimony or assets, and sometimes you might not get that distribution once the quadro takes effect, or it takes, could take a year for that to happen. And there's so many other elements or factors in your situation. So what is your tolerance level right now? And that's an important thing because that's one of the first things Donna, is going to ask you, like, how are you feeling about that? If like you lose this $1,000 or whatever the number is, are you going to be okay with that, or are you going to be really angry or sad? So it's something to think about. And I love that you've created this. The more resources, tips, tools, dare I say tricks people have, bless you, the better. Because it's essential that you don't just throw a dart at the wall without a bullet, a dartboard there. You've got to have an aim, a goal, and that's part of it. So thank you so much. And again, heartfelt thank you for sharing your story. I hope that everyone also was touched by that. And please feel free to look up Donna. So what is the best way, in fact, for people to learn more about you, follow you, like you, comment, maybe even book a consultation, and of course get your book or books, because now that you have 3.
Thank you. So, you can go to DonnaJeanKendrick.com, and on there they'll talk about, so yes, I have marketing people that do a much better job. I'm great at finance, not great at marketing or website or SEO. Again, I name my maiden name is Sefton, and that's what my practice is named after. Bad SEO search, so please know that. It's a PH, not an F. But go to Donna Jean Kendrick, and you'll be able to learn about our speaking opportunities, our podcast, Widow, Wisdom, and Wealth, our book, and then it will link you to the practice where if you want to go ahead and set up a discovery session or just a 10-minute phone call to pick my brain for a little bit, you can do that there.
I love it, Donna. Thank you, Donna Jean Kendrick. And your book, The Divorce Money Map, is going to make a difference in the lives of so many that need it. So thank you. And thank you, audience, for almost 10 years of making this podcast what it is. I'm overwhelmed with the growth of the podcast in the last 6 months. It's almost tripled in listenership. And it means a lot. Thank you so much. Especially with a podcast with a very difficult topic. If you listen to a podcast about lipstick or, money or celebrities or travel, everyone wants to leave a review. Everybody wants to like it. But when you're listening to a podcast about divorce, very few people want to leave a review because now they're admitting that they're listening to a podcast about divorce. So you may not find a lot of reviews, but trust me, there's a lot of listeners, and I don't take that for granted. I myself started this journey many years ago without knowing what the heck I was doing, and don't let my years of personal and professional experience go to waste. Make sure that you don't make any mistakes. So Better Divorce Academy, Better Divorce Blueprint, and yes, Better Divorce Podcast. Thank you, Donna Jean. Honored to have spent this time with you. And again, everyone reach out to her, Donna Jean Kendrick. Until next time, make it better.